Millions of engines on the road right now are failing ahead of schedule. Not in old cars, not in neglected vehicles, in relatively new cars, properly maintained, bought by regular people who trusted brands that have spent decades selling themselves as the gold standard of reliability. General Motors, Toyota, Honda, Hyundai. Four names that should never appear together in the same crisis headline. And yet, here we are. What you are about to see is not a collection of forum complaints. It is a pattern repeating across different brands, different markets, different technologies. When a pattern like this exists, the explanation is not bad luck or the complexity of modern engineering. It is a decision. Several decisions, made by people who knew exactly what they were doing. But before we get there, you need to see the full scale of the damage. Let's start with Hyundai and Kia, because their case is the most documented and the hardest to dismiss. Between 2015 and 2022, both brands accumulated more than 4 million vehicle recalls in the United States alone due to the risk of spontaneous engine fires. 4 million. The core issue is the Theta 2 engine, a 2-liter and a 2.5-liter unit found across dozens of models. This engine has a manufacturing defect in the lubrication system that, under certain conditions, leaves the connecting rods without enough oil. The connecting rods are the parts that link the pistons to the crankshaft. No oil means metal grinding against metal at extreme temperatures. The result is either a seized engine or a fire. And we are not talking about isolated incidents. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration received more than 300 complaints of fires directly linked to this defect. Cars parked on the street. Cars driving on the highway. Families who got out seconds before their vehicle went up in flames. Hyundai took years to acknowledge the full scope of the failure. The first recall came in 2017. The final extensions did not arrive until 2021. 4 years of patches while cars kept burning. But the Hyundai case is not the only one. It is just the one that exploded first. At General Motors, the problem has a different name, but the same logic. The 4-cylinder Ecotec engine family, and more recently the 8-cylinder engines in the LTC series with cylinder deactivation technology, have built up a record of failures that no longer accepts technical excuses. Cylinder deactivation is a system that shuts down half the engine when full power is not needed, supposedly to save fuel. On paper, it sounds smart. In practice, it became a systematic source of oil consumption problems, uneven wear, and lifter failures. The lifters are the small components that open and close the engine valves. When they collapse, the engine starts making a sharp, metallic knocking sound. That sound became a quiet scandal for owners of the Silverado, Sierra, Tahoe, and Suburban, with the 5.3-liter engine. Thousands of owners reported the same thing, a metallic tapping that appeared without warning. A collapsed lifter, if not caught fast, can take out the camshaft with it. That repair can cost anywhere between $3,000 and $8,000. Many of these owners bought the truck brand new 4 or 5 years earlier. GM issued software updates to address the problem. That detail matters. Software updates for a mechanical failure. The defect was not in the code. It was in the design and the materials. The software only changed when cylinder deactivation kicked in, so the problem took longer to show up. It did not fix anything. And here's the first turn that changes how you read everything above. Hyundai, GM, Honda, and Toyota. These brands have spent years competing in a market where fuel efficiency isn't a marketing option, it's a legal requirement. The corporate average fuel economy standards in the United States, European emissions regulations, and carbon dioxide targets in China. If a manufacturer does not hit certain average consumption levels across their lineup, they pay massive fines. That forces a constant hunt for grams of carbon dioxide and fractions of a liter per 100 kilometers. And that hunt carries a cost nobody is telling you about at the dealership. Modern engines are smaller, more turbocharged, pushed closer to their design limits, and more dependent on low-viscosity synthetic oils that reduce friction to improve numbers on standardized test cycles. All of that is engineered for a certification test, not for 200,000 miles of real-world use. And when reality collides with the test cycle, the engine loses. Honda has spent years dealing with an oil dilution problem in its turbocharged gasoline direct injection engines, especially in all-wheel drive models in markets with cold winters. Gasoline does not burn cleanly during cold starts, and it ends up mixing with the oil in the crankcase. Oil diluted with gasoline lubricates worse, and an engine that lubricates worse wears faster. But the engine stayed the same. Honda issued technical service bulletins, extended warranties in some markets, and revised oil change intervals, because the problem is in the design, not the maintenance schedule. And then we get to Toyota, the name that for decades meant one thing above everything else: the car that never breaks. The 2-liter turbocharged engine from the Dynamic Force family, found in the RAV4 Hybrid, the Corolla, and several Lexus models, has generated an unexpected volume of complaints about excessive oil consumption in certain markets. Not everywhere, not in every unit, but enough that owner communities have been documenting the pattern for years. Toyota responded with revised oil recommendations and warranty reviews in specific regions. What the company has not said publicly is that the underlying issue involves the piston rings, the components that seal the piston inside the cylinder and prevent oil from entering the combustion chamber. A ring that has been designed with tighter tolerances to reduce friction and improve fuel economy numbers can start passing oil into the combustion process earlier than it should. The engine burns oil. The owner does not see a warning light because the system does not trigger low oil alerts until 1.5 liters or more has already been lost. By the time they find out there may already be damage to the catalytic converter, the oxygen sensor, or the engine itself, the Toyota Mystique takes a hit when the brand's own owner forums carry threads with 200 replies about the same problem over 4 or 5 years. That is not a one-off failure. That is engineering pushed past where it should have stopped. There is something connecting all of these cases that rarely gets named directly. It is the oil change interval. For years, manufacturers have been stretching their recommended oil change intervals as a selling point. 10,000 kilometers, 15,000, 20,000. Some European models recommend going as far as 30,000 kilometers between changes with the right oil. That number is designed to make the cost of ownership look low on a brochure, not necessarily to make the engine last longer. The low viscosity oils these modern engines require, such as 0W20 and 0W16, break down faster under high heat and heavy load. A small turbocharged engine working hard on a highway, a delivery vehicle with a gasoline engine doing constant city cycles, and a hybrid in a cold climate region all expose oil to conditions that degrade it far faster than the recommended interval assumes. When oil degrades inside an engine with tight tolerances, wear does not increase gradually, it accelerates. Manufacturers know this. Their internal engineers document it. But the marketing department wins. Put this in dollar terms, because this is also an economic crisis for real owners. A failed engine in a 6-year-old car with 100,000 miles on it can mean anywhere from $4,000 to $12,000 in repair costs, depending on the model and market. If that car is worth $10,000 on the used market, the math says, abandon it. That owner loses their vehicle, loses their investment, and absorbs a cost that nobody will compensate because the failure appeared just outside the warranty window, because the recall did not cover their exact vehicle identification number, or because the dealership logged the problem as insufficient maintenance rather than a manufacturing defect. The legal battle that thousands of Hyundai and Kia owners in the United States had to fight to get any compensation is a case study in how a corporation can acknowledge a systemic defect and still dodge real financial accountability for years. First the limited recall, then the extension, then the voluntary compensation program, then the class action lawsuit, then the settlement. Somewhere in that process, there are owners who already sold their car at a loss, who already paid for the repair out of pocket, who already absorbed the damage, and who ended up outside the settlement over an administrative technicality. This is not an industrial accident. It is the predictable outcome of a system where engineers design for certification cycles, financial teams cut material and manufacturing costs, and marketing sells reliability without anyone in the chain bearing real long-term accountability. The problem starts at the design decision point and ripples outward. The modern engine is an impressive piece of engineering. That part is true, but it is also an engine designed to pass tests, meet regulations, and sell in a competitive market where price and fuel economy carry more weight than long-term durability. When a brand builds an engine with tighter tolerances to gain a fraction of a point on a certification cycle, that decision has real consequences for the second owner, who buys the car at 4 years old with 80,000 miles on it and knows nothing about any of this. Reliability is no longer a primary design objective. It is a marketing argument. And the gap between those two things is something you are paying for. Hyundai, Toyota, Honda, General Motors. Different brands, different strategies, different technologies, same result. Engines failing ahead of schedule, owners absorbing the cost, and corporate communications engineered to minimize liability. If you believe that buying a brand with a reputation for reliability automatically protects you, something in that assumption should have shifted by now. That reputation was built on engines from a different generation, designed with different tolerances and different priorities. What is sitting on dealership lots today is not the same thing, and nobody in that showroom is going to tell you that.